Bill de Blasio, he's calling for a hike to the minimum wage, and he's pushing for $15 an hour. Right now it sits at $9. Four West Coast cities, including LA, San Francisco, they've already approved a $15 an hour minimum wage. Well, joining us now is Barry Sloan. Barry's the CEO of New Tech Small Business Authority, and he is opposed to hiking it. And Barry, let's start this from a big picture. If we go back to 1938, right? Putting the New Deal together, that was the first time we had a minimum wage in the country. Do you think we needed it then, and do you think we need it now? Forget about what the number ought to be. Should we let business, let the market work its way, or should we set a basic basement here that there's a standard of living, or at least a minimum number that we won't go below?
Well, certainly things that we needed in 1998 we don't necessarily need today, particularly with the information systems that we have today in free markets. So, you know, if a worker is unhappy at 10 or 12 bucks an hour and wants to get a higher wage or a different job, given the information that's out there, it's very, very easy for them, where it wasn't in 1938, to find a new job. We employ over...
But should there be a minimum number, one way or the other, or should we let businesses figure out whatever they want to pay? If somebody will take the job, they should work for that?
Clearly, it should be a free market. One of the reasons why the United States has an economy that is greater by many, many multiples than any other economy is because it's free markets, capitalism, and these markets do work. And workers today, if I'm paying someone $12, $14, $15, $16 an hour, and they're not being well paid within their wage set, they will leave, and they do all day long. We've got to treat people fairly.
Okay. In terms of treating people fairly, and Richard, my fellow Republican here at the table
here. I feel like I'm being treated fairly. No,
okay, so far. We might not say so soon. Okay. I looked into it, and for anybody out there who thinks it's just the average high school kid working a summer gig that's making $8.75 an hour right now, the average age of a person on minimum wage is 35. The average age, in terms of employment for minimum wage, most work full-time, not part-time, to get that number. Translate to 18 grand a year. I ask you, my friend, food on the table, electricity here, rent, and all the rest. You tell me you're going to make it on $350 a month?
But as a small business, if I'm providing a job, you know.
No, but I asked before you went to your, I promise, I'll get to the small business owner. Can you make it on that? Can you cover your nut with $350?
I personally can't. That's why I own my own business as an attorney. But what happens is if you keep increasing minimum wage, you're going to squeeze out people who don't have higher education. You're going to squeeze out a lot of the entry-level jobs. So people aren't going to be able to build their resume, young folks. And again, people without high school diplomas or people who are in college, you're going to squeeze them out of the job market. Youth unemployment is already double digits, up in the 20s to 30%. For
you guys jump in, I want to bring Barry in, but Andrew, Dom?
I think there's two major arguments that I would say that support the minimum wage. The first is $8.25 an hour is essentially corporate socialism, because the people who make that money then have to go on food stamps or go on welfare, and so you're asking taxpayers to make up the rest of the difference, which really puts the rest of us in a difficult
bind.
Well,
they are taxpayers too, by the way.
No, I understand that, but if you're not paying them enough to get by, then the federal government has to step in, and that affects all of us. And I would venture to guess that you both are not the greatest supporters of either welfare or food stamps or those kinds of programs. The second point is that historically, as you look through the minimum wage and as we've kept the minimum wage up, that's been one of the bulwarks that's allowed our economy to prosper and allowed our middle class to grow. It's been a step that's allowed people to move into the middle class, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing such a strain on the middle class right now.
You were saying before in the break, we've been going around and around on this thing for the last 30, 40 years.
See, I can understand your point of view. I really can. I can understand the point of view of business owners that, hey, you know, you're pricing us out by forcing us, not government, to make up these salaries. But at the same time, I have been listening as a political journalist to the same argument from business folks for 30 years. No matter what city, no matter what municipality, oh, we're going to go out of business if we're forced to pay more. Well, folks are not going out of business in Seattle, so I just don't understand how you counter that.
I'm not going to make that argument today because it's really not a fair argument. But what you're actually doing by subsidizing people is you're hurting them. They're earning a higher wage than they can get in the free market if they take that wage. We pay people all different price points, but I will tell you, the minute we don't pay people fairly, they leave. This is not 1938. We're in a different decade. It's very easy to get a job. It's very easy to get mobility.
Wait a minute. Wait, it's very easy to get a job?
Yeah, it is. There's tons of jobs. All you got to do is go on the internet. You can do it with a mobile phone. I'm sorry, sir. You just need to go home and take a look at the internet and see all the jobs that are available. For people that want to work and work multiple jobs, they can get a job.
You had me until
I'm a small business owner. If you start increasing my costs, I've got to figure out what I can decrease. And it may be personnel. Instead of 5 jobs, now I have 3.5.
That's the other argument that you folks have been making for 30 years.
But it's very much true because you can't, look, I'm in business
if it's
to
true,
make money, not to go out of business.
No, you're right.
So I've got to figure out the bottom line.
I respect your ability to make money.
And that's for every small business.
I really do respect that.
But look at Walmart for 1 second, okay? Who's recently in the last year agreed to raise their wage. You look at last year, $6 billion to the 5 of us that we had to go in our pockets as taxpayers to make up for what their employees were on food stamps that were working there because they didn't pay them enough. We had to go in our pockets to subsidize it. Now, you want to just talk from a macro economy, not from the small business guy for 1 second? Who do you think you're going to give money to that's going to put it right back in the economy? You give it to the guy on minimum wage. I guarantee you, he's not setting up an IRA. He's putting food on the table or doing whatever else.
They don't have to stay at that level. It's an entry-level position that provides.
So where are they going?
Thousands of jobs.
I already said, in New York alone, you got more than 500,000 people making that. Nationally, the average age of somebody is 35 age.
But what's your education, though?
But
your job ability
is
based on qualifications.
Should there be a living wage?
No, not just out of the blue. And you shouldn't be entitled to just a living wage. That's ridiculous.
So we should keep them underneath, put them in poverty.
Absolutely not. But you're paid for what you're worth. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's why baseball players make $100 million because they're worth $100 million.
That's making sure that they get.
We don't want to do a union though for these folks, right?
Well,
no, absolutely.
If people want to organize unions, that's fine with me. I'm not gonna say no to that.
I just don't know, Barry, how we can say, hey, if I can get you $5 an hour, if you'll make 10 grand a year, it's on you.
I'm in agreement with you, and there's very few people that can live on that. That's why if that's the only job that person can get, chances are they've got to live with relatives, friends, family. They got to go to some kind of a charitable organization to support themselves. See, what we do is we give out these artificial subsidies, we give out laws, and we're basically coddling to these people.
Where do they go if they're making 18 grand a year and you don't provide it? How, if you're them, okay, you're the breadwinner in your family, how you putting the lights on, how you feeding them, how you figuring out how you're going to get to work or not? How do you make it? I can't make the nut work at 18 grand a year, let alone I got 3 kids.
If you've ever started up a business from scratch with nothing, you wouldn't answer that question.
No, I actually did, believe it or not. My only point is I wouldn't pay somebody $8.75 an hour because, I don't know what kind of person I'm going to be able to get for $8.75 an hour, but more than that, I know somebody else is going to have to pick up the nut to cover them.
We don't typically pay our staff minimum wage. I would venture to guess less than 2 to 3% of our staff gets paid minimum wage, and there's a reason for it. Those are the people that are the least desirable people in the workforce, and they're staying with you because they have no better place to go.
So that means we mistreat them?
No.
Because they have no other place to go?
I'm not mistreating them.
But you just said,
we employ 350 people.
Okay.
We pay a lot of taxes. We grow people in our organization, and we pay premiums. Not minimum wage, premiums. But if somebody wants a job for whatever reason, because they're living with relatives, because there's three earners in the household, you shouldn't be taking that away from them. And when you raise that wage, it's just math. Okay. They're not getting the job.
But you do know, I'm sorry, Andrew, but you do know that's the exact same argument they used to have for child labor, for working conditions. If somebody's willing to work here, if somebody's willing to work in a sweatshop,
do not apply today. Where you don't need. There's full information. This gentleman thinks there's no jobs available. I suggest he go on the internet on Monster.com, on Craigslist, and see all the jobs that are available for people that want to work and take the job.
The other thing you're doing is if you increase to $15, what you're going to do is businesses are going to pass on the cost. So everything is going to stay the same. So now the same person who's making a living wage has to pay more for food, more for gas, more for everything. So it's no benefit to them.
Okay, but you're making it sound, okay, that we're trying to do some palatial number here right now, okay? First of all, he mentioned it before, or Dom did. Seattle went ahead and passed something 11. They can't claim.
Over time.
They jacked it up. They're making more than 11 right now. And right now, they showed no depreciable impact on the greater economy. Moreover here, if you factor in inflation, you go back to 1938, the minimum wage should be 11 bucks right now. We have not kept up with inflation in terms of the minimum wage. I'm not saying give everybody 30 bucks an hour. It's a real world. I'm a businessman. Believe me, I get it. You want to control your costs. But there has to be a certain level.
That's a fair point.
Remember, the same people who are against didn't like the idea of Social Security.
That's a fair
didn't like the idea of Medicare, right? Imagine right now trying to sell
That's
that.
a fair point. I'm not saying you don't have to increase minimum wage or you should increase it. I mean, but it shouldn't be an automatic, you get $20 an hour. That should be, what is that based on?
Who said 20 bucks?
That's a living wage, right? That's what some people would consider $20 an hour, $18 an hour, $15, a living wage. Why should you be entitled to $15 an hour?
Why 11? Why 13?
Why?
I don't understand.
It doesn't make any sense.
Are you willing to
says
go
so.
that far?
Somebody
You
says
said
so.
you want to let the market decide. If,
Right.
if the market drops, I mean, if somebody lowers it to $5 an hour, everybody's going down to $5 an hour. Then everybody's going to $4.50.
No, they're not.
That's the way the
No,
market
that's
works.
a fallacy.
If that's
The
the
market-
base, if
the
that's the
market
base
does-
pay,
the
that's where
market
everybody's
doesn't
going
work.
to go.
The market doesn't
People
work
won't
that
take
way
jobs
because
at
you
that.
got to have people do these jobs.
Well, then
and you
why
got
are
to
there
pay the
minimum
people.
wage jobs right now? Why are there companies paying only the minimum
people
wage?
have the
Because that's the basement.
Why are people
That's
at
the
It has
McDonald's
nothing
making
to do-
$8.25
It-
an hour? Can you imagine paying people at McDonald's $15 an hour?
'Cause
Now
you're-
your Big Mac is $17.
Because
It doesn't make sense.
you're not encouraging people to train themselves, to educate themselves, to work harder, to be progressive. You're just giving them stuff, and they fall into that comfort zone.
I would not only part on that, but I also would think we're not exactly talking Rye Brook, New York everywhere. Sometimes there's only one Walmart in the entire city. You go up in the valley to some of the ghost towns I've gone into, it's not like they've got 12 other places competing for their employment. So if that employer, and you want to take away any regulation and let the market do its will, somebody will work for $2.50 an hour, okay? And then we become a third world. So to me, I'd like to think America, we got a little bit of a different standard than that. But as they say, to be continued here. Great conversation, Barry. Thank you. You got to come back here. I said Dominic got worked up here. All right, coming up next. You think it would be black and white, either you're black or you're white, but don't tell that to Rachel Dolezal. She was born white to white parents, but she told everyone, no, she's a black woman, and even got a job running a chapter of the NAACP. Instead of calling herself a liar, now she's being called transracial. We'll discuss after this.